I grew up in the Chicago area, basically the west suburbs of Chicago, and I went to art school there at Columbia College in downtown Chicago. So I spent some time in the city, and the city to me is actually Chicago. I spent a number of years there, and then I decided to go and get my master's degree in costume history. Really, I wanted to do jewelry history, but that wasn't really a program that was offered, so I did costume history. And so I was at NYU, and they took me through to the Metropolitan Museum, and I was able to study the real clothes from the actual time periods and things of that nature. So that has always been a love for me. One of the reasons why you see historic aspects in my jewelry is because of that influence. From New York, I met my husband there, and we moved down to DC where he was from. And I did theater, costumes for theater, for about 8 years. And then we decided to move down to Asheville, and it was bring your own job to Asheville. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to jewelry making. That was what I did in undergraduate school. I learned about a new medium called precious metal clay, and that became sort of what I ran with. I started a business with that, and I've been doing it ever since. So one of the programs that I did while I was at NYU was a decorative arts program, which is basically anything furniture, plates, anything that you decorate your life with. And what appealed to me the most was the arts and crafts era and the Art Nouveau era. So Art Nouveau is very swirly lines and nature inspired and things of that nature. And arts and crafts was really a reaction to the Industrial Revolution and getting back to making handcrafted items. And so both of those things in that time period really appealed to me in my aesthetic and in my work. I do a lot of, I've started a little Frank Lloyd Wright inspired stained glass series, and I do a lot of Art Nouveau shapes and things like that. A lot of people say Art Deco, and that's fine. It's, that was just the continuation of it as well. And I love being able to show that it was handmade. So each piece is still individually handcrafted by me, even though I may make it again and again. It is still, every single part of it is touched by my hands. So that is one of the best parts of it. The other aspect of my jewelry is the architectural aspect, making tiny birdhouses and little castles, and I have little cabins and cottages and little, I've got the Dutch colonial and the craftsman style house and the Cape Cod. And so I'm just having a lot of fun playing with three-dimensional objects and making them as wearable as possible. I often start with a symbol or an image or something that is part of the, the arts and crafts of the Art Nouveau motif. And then I will decide, okay, well, does it need a little negative space in there? Or does it need a little color? Or should I do it in bronze and copper? Or should I do it in silver? And decide from there. And then I actually create little stamps. So I make my own. They're called photopolymer plates, and they're really meant for letterpress or printmaking. You can take the image and you place it onto a stamp. Basically, you're exposing this UV sensitive material and putting your design over it. So whatever doesn't get exposed then scrubs away, and you have a deep impression that you can press into the clay. So the beginning of this is precious metal clay. So precious metal clay is actually silver particles suspended in a clay binder so that you can sculpt it like clay. And then when you fire it, the clay part will burn completely away and the metal particles will melt together, and you're left with a solid piece of silver. So you work the clay, you press the image into it, I carve it out from there, and then I let it dry. It needs to be completely dry before it goes in the kiln. Then it gets fired at the melting point of the silver. So at about 1650 degrees, that will allow the clay to burn away and the metal to come together. Then I have a solid piece of silver when I'm done. When it comes out of the kiln, it looks really bright white. And that's because all the particles have just come together for the first time. So we start brushing it down and burnishing it so that it starts to look like shiny silver again. And then I can either decide to put a patina on it, which would darken some of the recessed areas so that you can really see the detail, or I will go and I will put enamel on a piece so that you get color and you get all sorts of depth and reflection in that color. And from there, I will take it down to my buffing wheel, shine it up, and it's ready to go. You put it on a chain, you put it on an earring wire, and they're ready to wear. So that's basically the process of making precious metal clay jewelry. The bronze and copper is a little bit more challenging because the firing process is a little more difficult to use. It basically is more challenging because the metal wants to oxidize as you're trying to fire it. So you just have to work with that, and it has its own set of rules. Being at the museum and actually being able to look at the real garments and see how they've survived through the years and how all of the handwork went into them was absolutely inspirational. Just being able to be surrounded by the history of it and learning how those things work together. I always joke that I got a history of the world through fashion. So we dressed in a way that reflected the times and that told us, you know, not only our place in the world, but how we were able to function in it. I mean, nowadays, no one would be caught dead wearing a corset daily. It's just, it's exhausting. And so it's really nice to be able to update these things and bring out historical aspects without feeling like, you know, I've lost the history of it. I always say that precious metal clay makes the impossible possible. Hi, I'm Amy Brandenburg of Amy Brandenburg Studio, and you can see my work at amybrandenburg.com.